We're back and I'm using Hyper Offense yet again. It is one of my favorite playstyles, and if you remember my last game, I lost to a Memento, Cottony plus Scraggy core, and I realized something. That core is deceptively good. Even though Cottony is considered to be a so-called bad Pokemon, it has a lot of utility, and the most important part of that utility is Memento. It is very difficult to stop Cottony's Memento. So for example, say you make a natural switch of going Feral Seed on Cottony. Cottony can use Memento, and now Substitute Scraggy can set up on that Feral Seed. So Cottony is a very useful hyper-offensive Pokemon because it actually resists a lot of attacks. It can pivot into these attacks and then do a variety of things like Knock Off, Taunt, Memento. And for my last game, my opponent actually used that core with Porygon. But I realized something. Zigzagoon can do this sweeper job much better than Porygon, and this offensive triangle of Scraggy, Zigzagoon, Cottony has so much synergy that it is tough to handle. So for example, say you belly drum and you set up Zigzagoon. This forces in your opponent's Steel type. And even if you die to that Steel type, guess what? You can just go Scraggy and set up on the Steel type that you forced in. And this subtle difference between Porygon and Zigzagoon makes all the difference. Because Zigzagoon's belly jump is very demanding. It forces in the Steel type. Porygon isn't like that. It's a much better Pokemon overall, but you can pivot versus Porygon. Porygon doesn't make the same demands that Zigzagoon makes. And on a hyper-offensive team, the Zigzagoon's threat and influence on the game becomes very valuable because it can force in the Steel type that Scraggy can then set up on. So we look at my team is built around that Scraggy, Zigzagoon, and Cottony core. And then on top of that, I've added Abra to it. And Abra is strong and it is fast, first of all, right? But what it does better is that it really puts a lot of pressure on Steel types. So I can get a lot of chip damage on Steel types, which helps out Zigzagoon. And it also gets Thunder Wave. So I can Thunder Wave the Steel type, which helps Scraggy, because at some point in the game, I can substitute on that paralyzed Pokemon. So that's why I have Abra, for good fast offense and synergy with our attacking core. And then on top of that, I also have Ponyta, which is again strong and fast. But strong and fast, and it has a different type of synergy. Ponyta is going to be breaking down walls, but at some point it will tire itself out and it will die from recoil, chip damage, etc. But what's important is how the Ponyta dies. Typically, Ponyta is going to be dying to, for example, Diglett or Staryu. Right? Because those are natural checks to Ponyta. Diglett can trap it, Staryu is fast and bulky. But Diglett and Staryu both let Scraggy and Zigzagoon set up. They're too weak to stop them from setting up. So Ponyta also has synergy with this offensive core. And it's a really exciting idea to have all these attackers on one team, and even when one dies, all it does is set up the next Pokemon to keep on going. It's non-stop offense, and the best defense is a good offense. And to round off the core, I have a Suicide lead Onix. And Onix's job is just to Stealth Rock, prevent Stealth Rock, and then die. So this game is going to be a lot about tempo, and hyper-offensive teams in general, you have to get comfortable with the idea of sacrificing Pokemon. Tempo is a very abstract concept. It's tough to visualize how much is a tempo worth. But if you can understand this concept and understand the different tactical sequences, you can actually become really devastating for your opponent. So I really like hyper offense for that reason, and I'll get right into the game now. So my opponent is using type of a bulky offensive team, I would say, but here's the thing. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking this could actually be a screens team. And the reason I'm thinking that is because of Magby. Magby is a very uncommon Pokemon. It's a high risk, high reward sweeper, but it's very frail. So typically you only see Magby on screen teams. And now Magby alone isn't enough to make me think it's a screen team. But when I see something like Scraggy right next to it, I'm thinking, could be a screens team with, Swords Dance, Grookey, even Nasty Plot, Spritzee, which is uncommon, but it could very well fit on a screens team. So right now, I have it in my mind, this could be a screens team, but I'm not ready to commit to it. And fortunately, no matter if it's a screens team or not, my lead is always going to be Onix. Because Onix is going to be my lead no matter what. It's pretty brainless in the sense I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to taunt, and I'm going to get Stealth Rock up. That's all I want for my Onix right now. So she goes to Ponyard, she knocks off, and that knockoff is very strong, right? So it's probably a standard Ponyard is what I'm thinking. I get Stealth Rock up, and I die. And now you're probably thinking, was that trade worth it? You traded a whole Pokemon, one full Pokemon for Stealth Rock and a Taunt, Is it really worth it? And the answer is 100% yes, because it's not just about the Taunt and the Stealth Rock, it's also about the momentum that comes with it. I can now immediately go Scraggy, and I'm going to put a lot of offensive pressure right now, because I have Stealth Rock up, Ponyard loses to Scraggy, it's going to be very tough. So that tempo that I generated right here was definitely worth sacrificing a full Pokemon. And again, this is something that comes with experience, but how do you justify the value of a tempo? How do you know Onyx is worth 1 tempo, right? And that's something you learn with experience, right? So here, normally I would Dragon Dance immediately on a Poniard, but I see the Spritzy in the background right now, and it's really not worth it to Dragon Dance because I'm just going to run into the Spritzy. So I'm going to knock off here, and knock off is a good play for 2 reasons. One, if she goes Spritzy, I knock it off, and then I have to be a little careful about Covet, but otherwise it's not going to be a big deal. And if she stays in, say she stays in for whatever reason, right? If I knock off Poniard, that means the Steel type would lose its Eviolite, which means Zigzagoon gets a lot better. And you can see the synergy coming into play right now, the synergy of Scraggy plus Zigzagoon. Even if I knock off as I stay in, that is a net positive for me because it made Zigzagoon's life much easier. So I stay in, she knocks off, staying in, and I knock off, and she reveals that she is Focus Sash. And Focus Sash is a very interesting, uncommon item. But what Focus Sash means is that this is going to be Screen's offense, because typically Poniard actually runs Inner Focus, okay? So it runs Inner Focus so that it can guaranteed get Stealth Rock on Mianfu. So now this changes my whole game plan. I had it in my mind, but I wasn't ready to commit. Now I'm ready to commit. This is going to be a Screen's team. And what that means is it's probably going to be, Stealth Rock Poniard. It's going to be Light Clay Abra, Swords Dance Grookey, Belly Drum Magby, Dragon Dance Scraggy, and Nasty Plot Spritzy. I can pretty much deduce that from this Focus Sash Poniard. It is going to be a Screen's offense. So here, Taunt ends, and she uses Thunder Wave, and I miss the high jump kick here, which is pretty unfortunate, but not a huge deal. Stealth Rock goes up, and now I kill the Poniard. So overall, a decent trade. Ideally, I wouldn't have gotten Stealth Rock up, but it's fine at this point. Now she goes Abra, and here I'm ready to sack the Scraggy, because it's probably light screens with maybe, for example, Psychic or Teleport or Thunder Wave or Dazzling Gleam, I really don't know. But I'm comfortable sacking the Scraggy here, because I know it's probably not going to be Focus Sash, it's probably going to be Light Clay based on team composition. So she does in fact use Reflect, and I use Knockoff. So I get 2 kills now with Scraggy, which is really nice, and she goes to her own Scraggy, and now I go to Cottony, and one of Cottony's biggest traits is that Fairy type, right, which is very underrated because it can defeat Scraggy. That's the main reason why Cottony's Fairy type is so valuable here. So she simply high jump kicks, makes sense. I get the kill with Dazzling Gleam, and now she goes to Magby, and Magby can set up on Cottony. But I'm actually Taunt Knockoff Cottony. And the reason I'm Taunt plus Knockoff is actually for Fungus. My main idea with this core was that if I fight a Fungus, right, I can Taunt Fungus as I die to Sludge Bomb. And that means Zigzagoon or Scraggy can set up without being afraid of Spore. So that was the main idea of Taunt Cottony, Taunt plus Knockoff. So I'm actually going to be able to Taunt the Magby here. And that Reflect is going to be a little annoying, but not a big deal. And here I sacrifice Scraggy, and now the stage is set for Zigzagoon. Zigzagoon, a lot of people don't think it's actually good, but I believe in Zigzagoon. I think it's actually a good Pokemon. And here it's going to get a setup opportunity because Magby is weak without the Belly Drum. So Zigzagoon is just going to Belly Drum here. Fire Punch does 59, that's not good enough. Belly Drum here. Magby is too frail, too weak, and it's going to get killed by Extreme Speed. And now it's looking pretty tough right now. She goes to Grookey, but I actually have a hidden tech right now. I actually have Protect on Zigzagoon. And Protect is mainly for Mianfu's Fake Out. So I'm able to waste that one more turn of Reflect, and Zigzagoon is going to be able to sweep the game. And you can see how quickly things got out of hand. It's only turn 14, and the synergy of Scraggy, Cottony, Onyx dying on turn 2, and then setting up the Zigzagoon sweep, you have a lot of synergy, and this is how hyper offense can be. Very quick games, very decisive games, where you can just run through an opponent if you have your tactical sequences right. And here I had them right. I had the Taunt Cottony, I had the setup with Zigzagoon. So overall, a very, very fun game, and I really like the way the Scraggy, Cottony, Zigzagoon core ended up playing out. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe, and be ready for the next game.